What's the creepiest, most unexplained thing you've seen in broad daylight? It was 1984. I was 15 years old and was alone at my older sister's house. It was late morning. I just got out of the shower, still wrapped in a towel, when I heard a noise outside. I looked out a window and watched a complete stranger tying the doorknob of the main entrance to the railing of the deck with a rope I used to walk the dog with. He then leaned a mop, it was on the deck, against the door. I called my sister, told her what happened, got dressed, got the heck out of the house through a different door, and hid in the bushes until police arrived. The house was somewhat remote with no close neighbors. Found out later the door he tied up was unlocked. No clue how long he had been lurking around before I knew of his presence. To this day, we have no idea who that was and what his motives were. Beyond creepy, definitely unexplained. I once came home to a very similar thing. My door was tied to my deck with a rope and the door barricaded with something or other I can't recall. It was bizarre. As it turns out, my dog had managed to open my gate and door. I was just down the street and live in a rural area, so don't always lock things. The mailman saw my dog, recognized him, and brought him home, but the dog just reopened the door and ran back out. So the mailman tied the door shut and barricaded it. So anyway, something weird and bizarre was actually a heroic act by the local mailman. When I was young, me and my cousins found a bloody shirt in our woods. My cousins and their parents hunted, so we thought maybe it was from that. But then we found a Ziploc bag with shoes and shorts, all had to be from an extremely petite woman or an older kid. When we told our uncle about it, we got punished and weren't allowed to talk about it. I don't speak to them anymore, but it really makes you wonder. You maybe should report that to the police now. They might have some cold case that this would fit. I actually have. I did a few, not years and months ago, when I posted about this situation on another account. Sadly, where I live, our police is really corrupt because everyone is basically related or lifelong friends. So I've gotten zero response besides, "We'll look into it." I've done some research on my own, but haven't found much. I'm not a professional OFC, and I'm not too sharp. Plus, my uncle used to rent the house he lived at and had moved into there a few years before this, and no one remembers the past tenants. But hey, if anyone sees this and is into this kind of stuff, I'll answer any DMs about this situation. I'd love to help bring justice if there's any to bring. Sounds like your uncle had a reason to keep you quiet. Yeah, my first question is, why would he want to keep it quiet unless he was somehow involved? Scary. On a trip to Gulf Shores, Alabama. Stopped to gas up at some rundown gas station that was also a truck stop in Mississippi. Went to the bathroom, and as I'm standing at the urinal, I had the strangest feeling that something was off. This strange feeling overwhelmed the entire left side of my body. I don't claim to be supernatural or have any weird feelings or premonitions, and I've never experienced that feeling before that day or since. Anyways, I get up on my tippy toes to look to my left where the stalls were located. There was this deranged-looking white guy with nasty, greasy-ass hair and a fucked-up scowl on his face, staring directly at me. The most typical-looking psycho killer you could imagine. He had to have been standing on the toilet because I could see his whole face and the upper part of his shoulders. Immediately zipped up and got the fuck out of Dodge. It didn't even wash my hands. I believe there is a name for this phenomena, but I would never know how to go about Googling such a thing. But this was around 2013 or so, and I was having a smoke in front of my apartment on the front steps in the middle of the day, around noon or so. I got up to head back, and just for a few fleeting seconds while looking at the building, it looked totally unfamiliar. I knew I lived there. I knew it was my home. I knew I had just stepped outside only 5 minutes previously, but my brain was giving me some kind of indication that I had never seen this place before, and that there was danger inherent. I just kind of violently wagged my head back and forth, like an aggressive no gesture, and was immediately back to normal. But I'll never forget that moment. It was like my concept of reality had very momentarily just cracked. Sounds like jamais vu when something familiar becomes strangely unfamiliar. Never heard this term before, but it makes sense. Whereas déjà vu means already seen, jamais vu means never seen. The fact it's a French expression is pretty funny to me because when this happens to me or friends, we're French, we rarely say déjà vu. We mostly say, what if I feel like I have already lived this moment even though I didn't. Which is like 10x longer than it needs to be. A man with freshly exposed bone on his arm and missing a substantial amount of skin and muscle walked up to me in a parking lot, asking me calmly for cigarettes. It really freaked me out, and told him I was calling 911 for him. He immediately ran off, and I gave his description to 911. There wasn't much blood, but the guy clearly needed immediate medical attention. This was in San Jose on an afternoon about 6 years ago. Still have that image giving me nightmares to this day. Crossing at a busy intersection and seeing my perfect double walk towards me. We basically eyes locked until we passed each other. A total mindfuck, even more disturbing, instead of stopping and chatting and being amused by the entire biological coincidence. My immediate subconscious reaction was a massive rising internal rage that someone somehow had stolen my face. Very, very weird. Weird intersection near my house that about 3 months ago started to be torn down for being too dangerous, replaced by a roundabout. Funny thing is, it was a normal intersection, 4 directions, 2 lanes in 2 lanes out, with dedicated left turn lanes, except just about every week, someone crashed there. Every month, we'd hear of a near fatality, or worse. Police couldn't figure it out, so they started to petition for them to change it. They changed the light pattern and reduced speeds, which brought total crashes down. But here's the fuck thing. Serious injuries tripled. It got so bad they posted cops permanently to monitor the intersection, and what they noticed was, if they watched the intersection non-stop, nothing would happen, but the instant you'd take your eyes off it, someone would speed through a red light or make a left turn on red. They then finally tried one last thing, remove 2 of the lights in favor of stop signs on one of the roads. First day, there was a multi-car pileup. Second day, there was a minivan rollover. Third day, the mayor's daughter hit someone going 50. Day 4, intersection was closed for construction. This is my dad's story, not mine. In the 80s, my dad was in the Peace Corps and lived in Sierra Leone for 3 years. He had a motorcycle, or some sort of motorbike at least at one point, and would ride around the roads when he had free time. One day he's riding a dirt road that snakes around a small mountainside or hillside past some construction works. About half a mile after the road work, he sees a man on the side of this dirt road on the mountain hillside, just laughing his butt off. And he was blue. Not like painted blue, but blue. At first my dad rode on, thinking nothing of it. And then it sunk in that he saw a blue dude sitting on the side of a dirt road laughing wildly. He turned around and rode back to where he saw the blue dude, and there was nothing there. He kept retracing his path beyond the road work, and never saw the blue guy again. Later that day, he went back to the village he was living in at the time and told the locals about what he had seen. The locals all laughed and said essentially, "No, you didn't. White men can't see devils." Edit. Beyond the color of his skin. What made this even more spooky to my dad was the way the guy just completely disappeared when he backtracked. There was nowhere for him to go off the road, due to it being on a hillside, and he never found him again on the road, making it seem as if the blue man simply vanished off the face of the earth. Edit 2. Talked to my dad more about this one this afternoon. He said the color of his skin was like bright blue, like unnaturally blue. Bright blue. He also said he could hear the voice of the guy in his head, like he was talking directly into my dad's mind, telepathy style. My family had the car packed up for a road trip because we were moving across the country from the PNW to the Rust Belt. We were heading to the highway to get out of town and had to take some weird access road to get there. On the way, there was some man holding a long barrel rifle to a woman's head, walking through a vegetable garden. He was holding it with one hand and had a cigarette in his mouth. The woman was crying. My mom didn't believe me. I was 14. I know what I saw. I used to live on a farm, and one morning there was a full horse leg on our driveway. Like still had part of the hip attached and was fresh. We sprinted down to our horse paddock to find all our horses completely fine. We disposed of the leg and never got an explanation. Very creepy. Peas. This happened in Canberra, Australia, so there's no mountain lions or bears around here.